Hey everyone, it's Louisa Tanner-Munson from Feel Good Astrology, and this is a really special Feel Good conversation for me because it's something that I've experienced directly, and it's something I feel very, very passionately about. You may have already seen some of the wonderful shows I've done with the amazing Robert Jardine, who teaches us about German new medicine and its potentials and how we can empower ourselves to take control of our health. Well, in our conversations, and having had a conversation with his lovely partner Laura, we've all been through the situation of miscarriage, and they have explored miscarriage through the perspective of German new medicine. So we thought it would be a really good idea to do a show about it, in as much as it might help people who have gone through it, or for people who are planning to get pregnant and want to do everything they can to avoid this kind of situation from occurring. If I seem a little flustered throughout, it's because I actually am feeling quite a bit nervous, actually, and a little bit tearful. And I'm sure that's kind of to be expected, really, because it is such a sensitive subject. But let me just tell you a little bit about Robert before we get going, because if you haven't seen him before, you might not know what German new medicine is or how he came to do what he does. Basically, Robert, by profession, is an engineer and technician, and many years ago he was involved in a serious motor accident that left him in a coma for several weeks, and it also started him off on a new path, a pathway of healing, and through different modalities, etc. And over the years, he has come to learn about German new medicine, which, as a system of health, and almost like a guidebook or a handbook on how you can heal yourself, it really appealed to him from his engineering background of understanding how things work. So anyway, I'm going to bring on Robert and Laura now. And if you've got any questions at all, please do join us in the chat room, because, you know, we're really, really happy to keep this as an open and as expanded as it can be conversation. This is really just to do as much as we can to help. Anyway, let's bring on Robert and Laura now. Hey, you two, how are you doing? Thanks for joining me.
Hi, doing good.
Yeah, good. Good to be here tonight.
Yeah, we're a little bit nervous, but really glad to have this opportunity to say some, tell the world about some biological truths which may help some people.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Where would you guys like to start? Because you're the ones that have noticed like the connections and started to join the dots. Shall I leave you to sort of explain it?
Okay, well, a little bit about how why we're here or why we've decided to do this tonight was because myself and went through a miscarriage some months ago, earlier this year, and you know, it was just a really the most awful thing that we've gone through, isn't it? It was just terrible.
Yeah, I mean, it's like what you said, Louisa, when you wrote the introduction for this, that when you become pregnant, you know, your heart, you can't help but your heart just to feel just all the emotions of, yay, I'm going to be a mom, and, you know, holding the baby, and, you know, going through all that and thinking of names already. And you really do, you can't help but really just open yourself up for this amazing gift that's coming your way. And you know, and it's like, you know, I honestly didn't ever think it would happen to me, and every woman that's watching this, that's been through it, probably thinking the same. It never, you know, came into my mind, and you know, it was the most unexpected, probably I'd say the hardest thing I've ever been through. And I've been through a lot in my life. You know, I've moved country a few times, I've been bankrupt, and, you know, I've lived in various kind of out there places, with not much money. But you know, this for me, and you know, I'm a very spiritual person. I work as a intuitive tarot card reader.
Laura, can Can I just stop you there? Your sound keeps coming in and out, and
Right.
that's really clear now. I just wasn't sure if maybe something like your clothes or something was rubbing over, and I'd really like everyone to hear this really clearly. We can hear you. But
Okay.
that's better. That's perfect.
Yeah, so I've always had that really close connection with spirit and
God, pray a lot and
talk to my angels and guides, and so I've always thought, oh, I can get through anything. I'm strong, and
Yeah.
Spiritually, I've gone through many tests, but this, it didn't just knock me when it happened, but
it was months. It was, months later, I would find myself just, walking the hills or something, and something would just hit me like
it's like a trigger, and I would just burst into tears and be uncontrollable, and the pain, like I've never felt such pain in my whole life, like emotional pain. With losing your baby, it's just, yeah,
it's hard. It's pretty hardcore, hey.
Yeah.
With us, everything was going good, and we just got to the point where we decided to tell everyone, or not to tell our friends, just our very select few, and we thought, yeah, everything's good. We had one child, and we thought, hey, it's a dead cert, so we'll tell mum and dad, and we'll tell our best friends, and we were just sort of after that, not long after that, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to tell people what?
Well,
okay, so
I went through the miscarriage. Absolutely terrible experience. Everything, the hospital, everything, the way I was treated, everything, the pain, the emotional pain.
and then I thought it was something to do
With my blood type, because I'm Rh negative, which is
very rare.
Yeah.
And so we asked the German New Medicine
group.
Yeah.
Was this the cause of the miscarriage? Because
even though Rob knows his 5 biological laws, like he does inside out, he knows all the cells and the tissues, all the names, and this was something he hadn't really
experienced and
educated yourself on, I guess. And so we asked this Facebook group, German New Medicine group, and it was one gentleman on there who said it was
a conflict.
Yeah, it was a conflict that causes it, and the conflict is called
an ugly half genital conflict is the technical term for it, but it's like a conflict of it's with something of a sexual nature, which is pretty horrible and disgusting, or something offensive or disgusting that has some kind of sexual gender orientation. So it's with men, with the opposite sex. Obviously it's a woman that's pregnant, so it's with a man, or with something to do with men, or something that she perceives from that side of it. So
I totally,
as soon as I learned that,
well, we when we found that out, we started to think back. Okay, so when exactly did the spotting start? Because it started with just spotting, just little spots of blood, and we thought, well, when, what day was that? When it went over, it went over 3 or 4 or 5 days, didn't it?
Yeah.
So we thought, right, okay, when did the spotting start? So what happened the day before or that night? Immediately before that symptom, when things weren't going right. Okay, so we managed to sort of trace it back to some stuff that Laura had been looking on the internet, because we're also very aware of this COVID thing. Whatever side of the fence that you're on, well, that's the side of the fence you're on. We're very much on the side that doesn't really, believe it's a viral thing.
Yeah.
And you was looking at stuff.
Yeah, well, see, because I'm a bit like Rob.
I call myself, I suppose, a truther. I like to know what's really going on.
In Australia, I used to have a little spiritual shop there, and
so I get lots of other truthers coming in, telling me, way back when, so I knew that the planet's always been a bit not what we expected, And I was doing research, and I came across an amazing lady called Janet Osborne. I'm not sure if anyone's heard of her, but she's done a lot of great research herself and put some documentaries together. It's called Fall of the Bow.
Yeah.
I've watched that. It went, so it's very heavy, so I'm not really, you have to be in a really good headspace to watch that. But I was curious. I wanted to know the truth. I want to know what's going on. So it was a couple of pictures actually on that really disturbed me, and I mean, sickened me, really just disturbed me. And I went down to the river that day and I cried. I just cried for what I'd seen, and really to do with satanic ritual abuse and all that really heavy stuff. So
it's just that what you saw on the internet was very shocking and very disturbing, and it was of a sexual nature because of the stuff that was getting exposed. Whether it's true or whether it's not true, you perceived it as that at the time, and it had a definite strong effect on your emotions, because you're a mum already. Okay, we've got one child, and just to even think about that was just so horrible that it played on your mind. And you saw some pictures. Laura saw some pictures which just really, it just hit her before she could even have time to think about what she was looking at. There was an emotional impact happening there. And then that was really, we were able to sort of piece together that was the start of it. That was the major thing that triggered the process of which eventually ended up her having a miscarriage. So it was a sort of trauma shock. And and looking back now, I can kind of, I mean, obviously at first I blame myself, like we all do. It was total, how could I do that? How could I do that to myself? I'd done this to our child, and so I was carrying all that around, and lots of anger. So you go through all the emotions, but then I can talk about it now. 3 weeks ago, I couldn't, because I was in the same place. But since then, we have done so much therapy, haven't we? Yeah, we've done some. We did. I didn't realize that it was still quite such a. It was still controlling your emotions. I didn't realize it was still so in control of her emotions. She doesn't let, she's a very sort of strong person on the outside, and I didn't realize. So we've done a lot of pretty hardcore therapy, and it's made a huge difference in you. It's been a transformational, in fact, actually, to be honest. I couldn't talk about it before. And the work that we did really was facing my demons. I mean, it really was. And there was a couple of times I could have hit Rob. Again. Because it's heavy, really heavy stuff. But I really do feel that in life, you really have to do that to heal. And we had some it was in the house where the miscarriage happened, and it's the bathroom, and every time I went into there, I'd be bawling my eyes out, and it was a trigger. And I was just so fed up with it. I was like, I just want to move on now. I want to get on with my life. I want to be present. I want to be present for my son and happy me again, And so that's when I said to Rob, I just can't carry on. I'm like,
I can't believe how much it affected me. And yeah, so we went very deep, very heavy work. But now it's like I can talk about it, and I'm not thinking about it so much. And
No, she's sleeping better.
Yeah, I wasn't sleeping before, and
just everything's just come. You know, a lot of good things has come from it. But yeah, so really, that's the purpose of this today. Is to there are some lessons that we've gained from this, which everybody who is likely to have a family needs to know. Because we've now realized through the work of Dr. Hammer that you know, the one major trigger of miscarriages is this it's called an ugly half genital or semi-genital conflict. And I'm going to sort of explain what that is and what it does tonight. And
I'd be really keen to explore it, because that doesn't completely fit in with my experience. But the ugliness does, but not the male side. So I would really like to explore that, and also see if other people, you know, if anyone else wants to share their story. We have got Healthy Move from Portugal, who have said, Ola, sending healing wishes from Amsterdam, which is really kind, because it is still very fresh. I mean, it's, you know, it only happened this year for you. So that's so kind of you, Healthy Move. Thank you. Just before we go deeper, could you just explain the premises of German new medicine, please, Robert? Just because people might be thinking, hang on a sec, what has that got to do? You know, how can seeing something or feeling something create a conflict and create that kind of outcome?
Yeah, that's a really good starting place. So German new medicine comes from a discoveries of a German doctor, a medical doctor who was an oncologist, and an extraordinary extraordinary guy altogether, incredibly intelligent, and he discovered that initially it was with cancer, but he was able to extend his research to cover every disease that is known to modern medicine. And he has been able to prove that all symptoms or all diseases are actually part of a biological adaptive process, and that process is controlled through the brain by a function of the brain which is called the psyche. So the psyche, or the biological brain, it controls all of the body processes that go on within us, even things like fungal so-called infections or bacterial infections. Everything is controlled by the body, or by the psyche through the brain. And strangely, when it's active, if you do a CT scan of the brain, you can actually see this specific brain relay, which is controlling the specific symptom in the body. So through this work, or what this work means is that if you have a symptom, say IBS, well, that's going to be controlled by a specific brain relay that is active, and it has to be active for you to have that condition. And it's always caused by the same biological stress that with everyone. It's caused by a life perception. So it can be real, or you can dream it. You can be on drugs or something and see things that are not real, but they can affect your psyche. So it's a perception, okay, that the psyche picks up on and tries to do something biological about it, and that then causes a symptom. So it doesn't matter whether it's called IBS or Crohn's disease or breast cancer or schizophrenia or athlete's foot or a miscarriage. That's a symptom, and that's being controlled by this overall process. So this is what Dr. Hammer's given us. He's given us this roadmap of what is causing each symptom or disease, and then through that it gives us enough knowledge to work our way out of that, to either avoid it in the future, which obviously if we're lucky enough to get pregnant again, we'll avoid it next time, or if it's a condition that you want to cure yourself of, then it gives you the knowledge to piece together a path to recovery.
Yeah.
And that's what I do with my work. As I'm a kinesiologist and a hypnotherapist, like yourself, Louisa, yeah. But I always have this roadmap in the back of my mind of, okay, this person's got this problem, so I know where that's going to come from roughly. So I'm just going to be looking about in that person's life to find that trauma, and then be able to change that person's perception of that trauma so that we can free the biology to become healthy again.
Absolutely. And in fact, we've got a little encouragement from Gillian Alexander, our mutual friend, who says, great to catch this live, and so very true. Thanks for joining us, Gillian. And I'm so pleased that this is the right time for you to catch us live. It's going to be great to have you here. Thank you. Yeah, so it's a roadmap, a scientifically demonstrable roadmap that we use to chart how we're doing in our life and what we might want to look for and be wary of.
It's the most, I believe it's the most beautiful and perfect piece of medical research that's ever been done by anyone ever or anywhere, right? Because it is entirely objective and entirely provable and entirely repeatable. And I mean, Dr. Hammer died in 2017, and he had complete documented evidence, including brain scans and full histories and recoveries of approaching 50,000 people. And considering a lot of these people would have had multiple symptoms, then if you look at the brain scans, you're going to get multiple programs running, and everything. There wasn't one single deviation from what he said, not once in 50,000. Now there's nothing, there's no other medical research that can come anywhere close to that. Say smoking causes lung cancer. Well, my mum's 90 and she still smokes, right? Doesn't cause lung cancer in her. I know loads of people that have died of so-called lung cancer and they never smoked.
Yeah.
You know, that's like, there may be some slight increase statistically, but nothing. But when you look at Dr. Hammer's work, it's 100% repeatable 100% of the time. And it's objectively provable. So I can't understand for the life of me why medicine hasn't really been celebrating his discoveries instead of trying to suppress them. And, you know, so that's the thing that I can't quite understand. But nevertheless, we are where we are. And tonight it's about the what triggers miscarriage. So I think.
Yeah, I want to first of all thank you, Laura. I didn't thank you, you know, when you shared your story there, because you know, it's a big thing to share that because it's not spoken about. I mean, that's the other thing with miscarriage and anything like maternal that doesn't work out. It's just not spoken about openly in society. It's almost like an area of secret shame. So it's amazing that you feel comfortable to come here and share. So thank you.
Well, you know, I just, it's like what Rob was saying earlier. I just want people to understand what he's going to explain.
Yeah.
And if people are pregnant at the moment that are watching this, or are trying or want to try in the future, then you know, take on Rob's advice and you know, it's about preventing it, you know. It's because it's such, you've been through it, Louisa, you know what horrible experience it is, and it's I wouldn't want anyone to experience that.
No, absolutely not. One of the things, actually, before I ask you a question, actually, Gillian's sharing her thoughts about why mainstream pharma and big medicine hasn't taken the opportunity of German medicine up. No money in supporting something that makes no money for big companies. I think you might have a point there, Gillian. If money wasn't an issue, I'm actually sure that German new medicine would have been studied already, right?
Yeah, obviously so.
Yeah, because you know there's everything to gain from it. So the thing that I'm curious about, like, Robert, I know in the past you've shared about heart attacks, that, you know, German new medicine can work on every situation, but with some people, they may well have caused or got the sort of like the beginnings of a heart attack, or the beginnings of a conflict that can only be resolved in a fatal heart attack. And so my question is, the feelings that are involved with miscarriage, is it something that you sow the seeds for before you get pregnant? Like, what happens if, like, if you're already pregnant or you've already got this going on, how can you release the conflict without losing the baby? Is it possible to release the conflict? Is losing the baby the resolution of the conflict?
Yes, it is. Yes. So if that was the case, and it would be pretty much impossible to know that, I'm not entirely sure if the person could have conceived. No, they probably could have conceived, I think, if the conflict was active. Maybe. But if they did, then the best thing to do would be not to resolve anything until
Yeah.
the
Maybe.
pregnancy,
Right.
until after the birth. Okay. But really, the overall sort of message that I want to give today is that when a woman becomes pregnant, this is a very special time, and that woman needs to protect herself from any and all stress of any and all type. And
Yeah.
her man, if she or her partner, right, if she has a partner, or her close group of family, or her pack, as we say when we talk about German medicine, we're like as if we're pack animals. So our pack, or our family, or your partner, needs their role is to also protect the woman as she's pregnant, because he's protecting the child too. So if there's any big issues, the man should absorb that and not even bat an eyelid. And he should try to make sure that his woman is protected from stress, and the woman has to protect herself from stress. So she doesn't go on the internet, or she doesn't start going big heavy stuff that could well be affecting our lives in a huge way, which definitely this pandemic has done. But we didn't know it. We didn't realize how sensitive the brain or the psyche is in the woman who is carrying a child. Because what happened with what happened is a bit of sad history for us. But if we had known beforehand, I wouldn't have allowed Laura to be looking at all this truth stuff, and Laura wouldn't have allowed Laura to be looking at all this truth stuff. She would have been looking at the Magic Roundabout and Teletubbies with Rohan, our child, and that would have been it, and we would now have 2 children. But that's it.
I think also
Families cause a lot of stress.
and friends, I mean, not meaning to, but how sometimes when people turn to you as an
agony aunt and they tell you about what's going on in their lives, and
don't take other people's stuff on.
In future, I think my phone, if I get pregnant again, no internet, as Rob says, and no phone. I'm just gonna go
see now. But, because I
cannot go through that again.
And I know what caused it. And
I've got quite a few questions actually. Crikey, where was I? Hang on, let me just share Gillian's next comment actually, because Gillian has said, I haven't seen your share, but love to you both. Have had experiences of my own, and sharing is always a gift, so no one also feels isolated. And I would absolutely agree with that, Gillian. Thank you for that. It is really important that people don't feel isolated. I remember my comment now. So based on what you're saying, it sounds like the ancients were actually quite right about how pregnant people should be, like pregnant women, sorry. Women used to be put into confinement, didn't they? They used to be put into a place where they were absolutely looked after and not allowed to do anything. Sorry, there's a bit of a delay in my speech, I can see. So I hope that's not too distracting. But yeah, they used to be confined. And I'm sure that when they were in confinement, then they wouldn't have had that kind of trauma going on.
Yes, I think so. There's an awful lot of wisdom in ancient traditions. I think modern man has been a little bit confused by science and things, and medicine especially, because, you know, at the end of the day, medicine's a business. And when we lose track of that, and we tend to think of medicine as something that's out for the good of mankind, which we're kind of, you know, we do tend to think that we can get led astray. You know, obviously, old traditions are there because they worked and they were needed.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Gillian's just added something. I was massively sensitive when I was pregnant the first time. It was in the good old days when there were only 4 terrestrial TV channels. Those good old days. But I could hardly watch even that, as they were fundraising adverts for starving children on them. I just recognised to keep well away. Yeah, I'm sure you felt very similarly, Laura. I mean, I'm sensitive to stuff I see on telly anyway, but I couldn't go anywhere noisy. Like the noise, I would feel very sensitive to and just want to keep my belly out of it. But anyone who's got sort of psychic awareness and healing ability, you feel everything when you're pregnant, don't you? You just go, we just become this wide open birthing canal, don't you? Just like all that energy going there. So can we explore the links that you found then? So it's a conflict, an ugly conflict. Was it 2 conflicts that you identified, Robert?
Well, right. So the biology of it.
I'd like to know the biological imperative of it. You know how when people have cystitis, for instance, and it's basically there to help them spray. You know, what's the biological conflict going on with miscarriage?
Okay. Do you want to stay for this, or do you want to go?
Well, I'll let you crack on.
Yeah.
One thing I did want to say though is my understanding as well. I mean, I do know the 5 biological laws pretty good, but when Rob explained it to me, I just saw my womb as a garden, and you know, it needs to be kept that way, and you can't have, you know, weeds and blackness and darkness in there because nothing will grow, or poison in there because nothing will grow. And
Yes.
you know, that's just, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's what we've been working on the last 2 weeks. We've been working on clearing all that out, and I think every woman needs to do that.
Yeah, that's actually
Anyway.
a very beautiful analogy, and I think a really necessary visualization, and you know, something to bring about. Thanks so much for that.
Okay, I'm going to let you guys get on because it's going to get too technical for me.
Thanks for joining us, Laura.
All good.
See you.
Fun.
See you. Yeah. So, right. Pregnancy is in itself a biological adaptive program, and it has, like all other symptoms of disease, it's not a disease, but all other biological processes.
Yeah.
It has 2 halves. The process has a conflict active half and a resolution half. And pregnancy is the same. Once conception, once implantation takes place, the pregnancy program is activated. And for the first 3 months of the pregnancy, it is what we call in German medicine conflict active.
Wow.
And then for the last 6 months, it is in healing. So at 3 months after the first trimester, the woman goes from conflict active to healing, and a whole pile of processes take place in the body in the brain and in the body, which are all designed to help this process happen smoothly. So when a person is conflict active in the first 3 months of the pregnancy, the sympathetic branch of the autonomic nervous system becomes dominant. Okay. So the autonomic nervous system has two branches. It's got the sympathetic and the parasympathetic branch. So for the first 3 months, the sympathetic branch of the autonomic nervous system is dominant, and there's a whole pile of processes which come from that, which help the pregnancy. One of the processes which helps the pregnancy is that all the uterine muscles go into a state of contraction. They go contracted in order to hold the new fertilized egg, the new fetus, in the womb, to keep it all nice and safe and tight and snug. Also, there's a lot of there's also this cell nutrification of the uterine wall, so that all the blood and all the nutrients go there to feed the little baby as it grows. Okay, now half of the pregnancy, the uterus is the nourishment is still there, but the muscles start to relax to allow the baby to grow, because by that time it's fully embedded, right? And it allows it to grow, because the thing, they grow to quite a big size, as you know better than I, right? Yeah. So the woman's body has to give it room to grow. So there's this biological process going on, right, which should run perfectly smoothly, and at the end of it you have a nice happy child. Now, what happened with myself, and perhaps very many other women that have had a miscarriage, is that we suffer, or the girl suffers a semi-genital sexual conflict. So Laura saw something on the internet which was desperately horrible, what was getting done to kids, and it was of a highly sexual nature, and the satanic rituals and all that stuff that's, we shudder to think about, right? Well, what happened with Laura was she was already pregnant. Okay, then she took that shock. So what happens is another biological process gets set in motion in the brain. She's already got the pregnancy one running. Okay, but then the second process gets started, and with an ugly semi-genital conflict, what happens is that the female body reacts by trying to, in its own crazy way, almost like it starts to nutrify the wall, the inner mucosa, as if it's pregnant. So what Laura actually had running was almost like two pregnancies. She had a real pregnancy, and she had another kind of pseudo pregnancy reaction to this ugly sexual conflict. So she was in the first 3 months of them both. The uterus was becoming very nutrified. All the blood was going there to feed the fetus, and also to feed this unresolved, horrible thing that she'd seen and heard on the internet. Okay. Now, that would have been okay. I mean, it would have not been good, but it would have been okay until the end of the 3 months, and then her pregnancy program would have been trying to switch into the sympathetic atonic phase, which, remember I said each pregnancy has 2 phases. The first 3 months is conflict active, and then the last 6 months is in what you might call the healing phase, right? Well, if she had also had this ugly sort of sexually orientated conflict running, conflict. Yeah, a disgusting horror, something that just doesn't sit well, and it's to do with the opposite sex, right? So it grumbles on. Well, if she had that running and it was still running for, say, 2 years, right? If it was going to run on, then her body would have been confused when it switched over for the second half of the pregnancy, because the body, the womb cannot be both conflict active and in healing at the same time.
Right.
So it would have messed that up. But that wasn't the case with Laura. What happened with Laura was that the semi-genital conflict went into resolution while she was still conflict active, if you like, with the pregnancy. So the whole womb is still trying to nourish itself and go into nutritious, to create a nutritious surrounding for the fetus, right? And hold the baby tight with a smooth muscle. But when the ugly conflict went into resolution, it wanted to let go of the nutrition. It's almost if it was having a period. It just wanted to sort of rid itself out and start again. You see, and it could also have started some release of prostaglandins, which are hormones which the body produces, which cause the muscles to relax. You see, so it's almost as if the pregnancy was trying to continue in the first trimester, but the ugly semi-genital conflict went into resolution. So it was trying to get into the healing phase. It wanted rid of the nourishment that it had given to the womb. You see, so with it, when that conflict went into almost like having a period, right, it took out the whole pregnancy as well. So it started with the spotting, and then it got worse, and then it got better, and then we went to hospital, and we came back, and then we had all this stupid mask thing and all these flipping crazy rules that was going on, and then she got sent home, and then she was all hoping, and then the bleeding stopped, and then it came worse, and then it came all out, then it all went really wrong and went all down the toilet, and then that's when even going into the toilet for Laura for months and months ahead, she was just in tears because it just brought subconsciously, it was just all connected to that trauma.
Yeah.
Right. So that was the sort of the biology or the brain stroke interaction which caused her to have a miscarriage. Was that this ugly semi-genital conflict went into some kind of resolution. And it was almost trying to have a period at the same time as her body on the pregnancy program was trying to hang on to it. Of course, it couldn't, and it just took them both out, and it took the baby out with it. And that's why that's one reason why stress of any sort, but especially that sort, needs to be completely avoided. And even when a woman's pregnant, she should not have conversations or any interaction with people that are having issues like that, because a woman can even suffer it for somebody else.
Oh yeah, absolutely. In the way that people do visual rehearsals and things like that, like what you think about, you bring about. When you see something, it's possible to feel like it's happening to you, or to somebody like close to you, and to have
exactly
reaction.
Yes, exactly. It is almost as if our bodies, and men too, but obviously different things. Men too, we can have a biological conflict just because a member of our families had it. Let's say, like a woman, like a grandmother, right, whose granddaughter has a terrible accident. Well, the grandmother can start to get breast cancer, but it's not even her child; it's her daughter's child. Do you know what I mean? The grandmother can actually start to produce breast cancer, and the reason behind that is because the grandmother's breast wants to nourish the child to get well, so therefore it wants more breast tissue to produce more milk. Now, the grandmother might be in her 60s or 70s, so she's not going to be either producing milk or getting pregnant again, but her body doesn't know that. It's just hardwired to do that. So so the same is true for when girls get pregnant, right? Is to say, right, this is my time of, so this is a time when I'm going to protect my child from any trauma that it will have as a result of me being traumatized as well, because the fetus can actually be traumatized. Actually, the fetus, if it suffers things, I mean, the major cause, it would be like loud noises. Loud noises are a big danger to unborn children, right? And one of the reasons behind that is the baby is connected to the mum, and it has to hear the mother's heartbeat all the time, because that tells the baby that mummy's okay. Heartbeat, you go boom, 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 boom. The heart's going, and the wee baby's listening to that heart 24 hours a day. Now, if all of a sudden there's an ultrasound scan getting done, or the woman's gone to a rock concert or something like that, or she's standing beside a great big noise, something that's really noisy, like a lorry or something, right? The baby can lose contact with the mum by the sound of its rhythm of the heart. So the baby can take a trauma.
Yeah.
And Dr. Hammer actually discovered that is the cause, these traumas are the cause of Down syndrome, Mongolism.
Really?
Is actually caused by a hearing conflict that the fetus has, right? And that's just quite... With that knowledge, then, as a woman, a pregnant woman, according to what Dr. Hammer's knowledge has given us, the good advice is to say, right, whoa, if you're lucky to have a man, then the man's job is to protect the woman and to make sure that if there's any bad news comes her way, it has to go through him first, and he has to just make sure that no trauma is ever experienced by that woman. And that's really my message tonight. It's just that what happened in Laura's case and in many other cases is that when you suffer that specific type of semi-genital conflict of some kind of pseudo-sexual nature, even if it's just like some man being totally overly masculine and treating a woman like she's, like in a way that he shouldn't. Like, I'm not talking about sexual abuse, but I'm talking about just there's a word, misogynistic. Is that the word?
Yeah, misogynistic.
Right? Yeah, right. Even that can be perceived by a woman's psyche as a semi-genital conflict, and that in itself, when that goes into resolution, it can take with it a fetus.
Can I ask, what is a semi-genital conflict when someone's not pregnant? Like, do they happen when? Yeah. So what happens? What happens biologically in the body when a woman goes through a semi-genital conflict? Because the reason I ask is just, obviously what you're sharing here is, to somebody who's new to German new medicine, they're probably just likely to say, that just sounds bonkers. And, and if this is your first introduction to German new medicine, I really strongly advise you listen to our other shows, because as you go through them, you'll realize that all of the illnesses that we've spoken of, or Robert's spoken about, has an actual biological conflict, which you can clearly see in the demonstration. And he's gone to great lengths to explain things like marking and territory conflicts and things like that, which happen to all mammals, or maybe all animals, I don't know.
All animals.
And we are hardwired with the same kinds of conflicts, which we try to resolve, and the resolution of them often has a physical, or always has a physical symptom. So what I've never heard of a semi-genital conflict, and also an ugly semi-genital conflict. It just sounds like something you've pulled out of the sky. So I just want to sort of explore it a bit more. Like, what happens with a semi-genital conflict?
Well,
what does it do to a body?
Yeah. Okay. So a semi-genital conflict, is processed by a relay which is right smack in the middle of the brainstem. So the brainstem is part of your brain, and it's the oldest part of your brain from an evolutionary, right? So it's the original sort of reptilian brain, I think it's also referred to. And right in the center of the reptilian brain is a relay which responds to this type of conflict. And in women, it causes it's kind of like causes like the first half of a pregnancy to start. It causes the nutrification or over nutrification of the womb. Right, so if she's not pregnant, if she starts to have mega heavy periods, that can be a cause of that, because every time she has a period, if the conflict is still ongoing in her life, like she's living with it, for example, then the womb over nutrifies, and then when the period comes, because if there's no implantation, there's no implantation, no conception and implantation, then you go to your period. And if you start having mega heavy periods, that can be because it's like there can be other things causing it, but so that's one symptom of it in a non-pregnant woman. So non-pregnant women can suffer it, for sure.
Can I find out, like, what is it about a semi-genital conflict that, like, why do we over nurture that area? Like, what's the biological reason? Like, like with the spraying, I understand that our bodies prepare so that we can spray and mark our territory, or because everything that you've shared so far has really made sense, and like when I've heard it, I've gone, I mean, I totally understand the fact that we're psychic sponges, and I am so impressed by German medicine. I'm trying to find this extra.
Right. It's a difficult, right? It's right. We're talking about evolution happening, and these programs being part of that process, which come from like millions of years ago, right? So when we were all connected to all the other species, right? So we're talking that long ago, right? Now, sometimes the body, like, we've got a light switch. You can see a light behind me. Now, there's one light switch for that light. Now, every time if the body's only got that one switch, right? It can be more than one thing switches it on. The body's only got one. It's only got kind of one response to that kind of theme of issue. Right. Now, if it involves sexuality, and it could even involve elements of protecting something from that, from that's horrid and with a sexual twist to it, right? Well, the only relay that was in the brain at that time, when we were basically these reptilian things, right, was the relay which causes nutrification of the lining of the womb. So I suspect that it's like a separation, like, for example, separation conflicts which cause, say, eczema, right? They can be caused by loss of contact, but they can also be caused by wanting to lose contact, right? Right. So can you sort of see how if you want to nourish a child, or an unborn child, a fetus, right? Then you want to create lots of nutrition there. But also, if there's something so disgusting that it involves children, it's got that semi-sexual part to it, which is all about conception and children, then the body's only got one switch. So it has to, it's just two fingers, if you like, have switched on the light switch, and it's one finger is when it wants to protect the child, and one finger when it's so horrified about something that's got some kind of sexual connotation to it. And the body's only got one switch, like this room's only got one light on. So the body is sort of by default, that's the only reaction it could do. And because it had this kind of strange sexual overtone, or undertone, and you know, and it's to do with reproduction and sex, and whether it's even filthy, dirty practices that are being done by people to, you know, others against their will, right? It's still got that kind of sexual element to it. So that relay is activated, and the only thing it can do is switch on and then switch off when the conflict goes into resolution. And that's what happens with what happened with Laura, was when it went into some kind of resolution, the body then tried to go to almost if it's like having a period.
Yeah.
But the other program was trying to hang on to a baby. Of course, the whole lot just got swept out.
Yeah. So, I mean, what I'm hearing is almost like washing out of disgust.
Yeah, that's it. It's almost like it was like some kind of pregnancy program that was started, and when that goes into, you know, when that went through to termination and resolution, then it interrupted the real pregnancy, which was still trying to, in the first trimester, which was still trying to hang on to a little fetus there and feed it and keep it all in a beautiful place. And of course, a womb can't do two things at the same time. It's either got to do one or the other. So, you know, the rest is history.
Yeah, I totally understand that. Gillian has been very generous, and she's got some ideas that she wants to share. And yeah, they're really brilliant. Have been holding back on any comments while you describe this process. When a woman is expelling trauma from her body, she can often expel it from her womb, almost like giving birth to it. Have known some clients to have full contractions and certainly to bleed wherever in her cycle she is, or even if they're postmenopausal. It's interesting, actually, Gillian. I know that if I've had a very emotional month, I feel like I have extra blood loss. It's like I am like washing it out. And I've always had a sense of deep relief when I have my period, because it feels like I'm, at some level, it's like I'm being cleansed. You know, it's that great washing out. Then she's added, and I love this, Robert is highly articulate in explaining this. And I would agree with that. And I've been putting you to task, but it's really because I want this. I want people that don't understand German new medicine to totally get it, you know. And then Gillian's added, females of any species will tend either to not get pregnant or carry the pregnancy if the environment appears not to be safe. Is that part of the limbic survival response? Thank you, Gillian, for that.
Yeah. I'm not sure that there's a question at the end there. I'm not entirely sure. Another reason that pregnancies, or another reason that girls should be protected from stress when they're pregnant is that I talked initially to start about, I mentioned the muscles, the smooth muscle within the womb, which goes through a process. For the first 3 months, it starts to it goes tight, nice, everything tight, when the little tiny fetus is just growing, you know, tiny little thing. But then when it needs more space, they relax. And the prostaglandins, which are these little like localized hormones which control the contraction of the muscles, right? They're part of this process. Well, any stress, okay, puts any trauma, I should say, any what you would call DHSs, which in German, it's the German terminology, German medicine terminology. So any bioactive stresses which strike us, okay, they put the body into conflict active. Now, if the woman, let's say she's 6 months pregnant, right? Her body is in what's called the vagatonic, or the sympathetic atonic phase of the pregnancy. She's gone after the first 3 months where it's conflict active. Now she's gone into healing. So everything changes around. The parasympathetic branch of the nervous system takes control, and all these muscles relax to allow space for it, for the baby to develop properly. Well, if all of a sudden you go conflict active about something. Let's say there's been a major fight in the family, or some mega trauma happens, right? And the woman gets a major shock. She will go highly conflict active. Now, the sympathetic nervous system will struggle to be highly in the healing phase of the pregnancy, and yet highly conflict active phase of this trauma. And that in itself can cause a lot of confusion with the mechanisms which are trying to protect the pregnancy.
Yeah. That's interesting that you share that, because in my last pregnancy, in the second and third trimester, there was an almighty shitstorm going on in my family, which I appeared to have instigated. and my pregnancy continued, presumably because of the timing of said shitstorm. And funnily enough, it did have a sort of semi-genital conflict origination, weirdly. I don't know if it's ever really fully been resolved. It kind of was it's a let's agree to disagree kind of thing. That was the best resolution that could have occurred. But in my around the time of the pregnancies when I had miscarriage, 2 miscarriages, and then fell pregnant a second time, sorry, a third time. We in the last time we chose not to tell anyone until around 4 or 5 months. We kept it very, very quiet. People very close to us who knew where we lived and stuff, they knew that I was pregnant and carrying, but we didn't tell any family members from a side of the family that had very strong reactions to our news when I got pregnant and lost our twins at 13 weeks. So I'm wondering, like, this wasn't a male thing, that initial conflict. I'm just wondering, do you think that's why, people delay telling people until gone, into the second trimester? Is that like instinctively when it's in that safe phase where shock and trauma can't rock it?
I'm not sure. I think I think if we go back in history, I don't know if people would have kept it a secret. If you go back hundreds and hundreds of years when we lived in tribes, and the lady became pregnant, I think they would have been celebrating. I think everyone would have known, and they would have reacted in the right way, and life would have been conducted in the right way within these tribes.
What is the right way that people are excited that there's new?
Yeah, it's good news that the woman needs to be looked after, cared for. It's a time for understanding that nature is happening, and that woman is, she needs to be cared for and protected during this time. Because you're not just protecting her, you're protecting the child more than her, to be honest. So I think that's the right way to be. I don't think that you need to keep it hush hush, but we're all, because we got this thing about, we don't like to tempt fate and don't want to tell anybody, and so, which I kind of do understand too. We've been through that. But I would like to say there's one point I'd like to go back on, and you cannot really know if you suffered a semi-genital conflict consciously. You can only know symptom presents. It's not, that statement is not a conscious perception or conscious understanding of something. It's what this biological brain suffers is a semi-genital conflict, right? So it's the best words that Dr. Hammer could find to describe what the psyche has experienced. The conscious mind can be lots of different things cause that. It can be an argument with even a woman. Well, I don't know if it can be. It's unless she's perceived to be like a man, or if it's talking if it's to do with, I mean, it's just too complex to generalize about, right? But if you experienced that type of miscarriage, then your psyche will have suffered that conflict.
Right.
Whatever in life caused it might not be so easily sort of discernible as that conflict. With Laura, it was because it was to do with, you know, the torturing of children, and some of the pictures and images she saw absolutely shocked her to the core. And it was it actually, when we look back, we realised it even stopped her. It stopped her sleeping. She even was waking up at night dreaming about this. It was so terrible for her, and it went on for a long time. And then it was only on a sort of resolution of that, when, you know, she kind of, on some level, she must have let go of that issue, that it went into the second phase, and that took out the pregnancy with it. So that's another sort of point which perhaps I haven't got across that well, is that when I talk about, I give a specific name to a conflict, that's the conflict which the psyche suffers. It's like a biological reaction.
That makes more sense.
Yeah, what actually we perceive as living, thinking human beings might be, you know, something else. I mean, like one trauma that affects 10 people, you could get one person having a heart attack, one person getting cancer, one person getting nothing at all.
Yeah.
You know, everybody's psyche perceives it their own way. It's all subjective. Yeah, life is a subjective thing that we experience. We experience life. How you're wired emotionally, how you're being brought up, all your expectations, that all plays part of the equation. And then we experience life, bang, you have the shock, and your psyche just grabs that shock and does something with it instantly. And in Laura's case, it did what it did. And the result is, you know, the miscarriage. Yeah, so I think that's important to know. But the overall picture, the overall sort of takeaway of this presentation is, listen, pregnancy is a special time, and everyone in that woman's network should work together to make sure that that woman's period time is enjoyable, is celebrated, is full of all the good things, as well as a hope. It's not a bad thing to hope, you know. It's like some people say they're scared, you know, that they feel, because you do. I mean, you know, we were quite, as far as parenting goes, myself and Laura are not the youngest, you know, not the youngest to be having a family, but these things, you know, it all happens and it's great. So there's all these worries get built in, right? And we just got to realize, hey, it's not good. It's not good to be watching the news, to getting into big disputes, to getting big arguments. If it's a family argument, well, the woman she should not be involved with that just now. And if you're part of a family or part of a network that cannot understand that, then you have to remove yourself. If you're lucky enough to be part of a framework of people that could understand that, like the traditional people, the tribes and such, they understood it, right? Then it's all great. A woman's taken care of. She's taken out of circulation for 9 months. She's looked after. Everything is great in that. And wherever these girls go to become pregnant, to become the mum, then it's obviously everything's good for that, and that's great. But because we're in a society and a time and a place that doesn't recognize this, then we do have to protect ourselves from the internet, from the news, from all the big issues in life that could be dangerous.
So yeah, that totally makes sense. I mean, it's a miracle any woman can carry a pregnancy these days, because like women, you know, they usually have their sort of like celebration at the end of I can't remember what they're called now. You know, a baby shower. I've never had one, but you know, they have their celebration right at the end, and for the rest of their pregnancy, normally everyone just behaves as normal. The woman goes to work, usually works up right until the end. you know, until they're kicked out of work, you know, by HR for legal reasons. It's not celebrated or revered. And sexual abuse and misogyny and stuff like that is paraded everywhere, all over the media and social media. In fact, it's almost revered. So it's incredible that the psyches of people aren't more damaged. But I guess the rates of people going and having miscarriage and spontaneous abortion are much higher than they have been. It increases, doesn't it, rather than decreases?
Yeah, definitely so. To be honest with you, it's pretty much a miracle how the human species is still managing to expand, which it is, but it's not. It's despite what we do, not because of what we do, eh?
Yeah. And most people's understanding is it's all medical. Everyone's understanding is it's obviously physical. From the perspective of, there must be like bad genes or this, that, and the other. It's always, I mean, that's where humanity seems to see things from the perspective and forgetting the sort of archaic but still very current programs that are going on. And they're there for a reason, aren't they? Like you said.
Yeah, well, these biological programs help us get through evolution to where we are. They are emergency adaptive responses which helped our species stay alive, and every other species as well. And it's it's our ignorance of this biological truth which is ongoing in every one of us 24 hours a day. Right? We're all walking around with this every moment of the day. And it's our unawareness of that which is the cause of many, many diseases that would be avoided if we knew what actually caused them. So if we knew that separation causes dementia, would we cart off our our parents when they become slightly, when it becomes convenient to have them, right?
Yeah.
Would we, no, we wouldn't, or we might not, right? And same, if every time, would we fight so much about some territorial issue if we knew it was going to give us a heart attack and it was going to kill us? No, of course we wouldn't.
Yeah, we'd fight more wisely, wouldn't we?
Yeah, exactly. We would live with a bit more thinking about what is valuable. And it's such a crying shame that not everybody knows about German new medicine, because it is the greatest gift that mankind has ever been given. It tells us what we are, and it tells us indirectly how to live.
Yeah.
And it's just, as a therapist, I always end up trying to heal the damage. Whereas the best way to get to learn German new medicine is before you even get ill, because that way, as soon as, if you do, you can never foresee expected shock because it's a contradiction in terms, right? But you can prepare your mind to be more easygoing, to sort of realize, that some things are not so important, that things that we might be overly obsessive about. And more importantly, when we do, as we all we'll suffer biological shocks in our lives. All of us do. But if we had this knowledge, we would know, we would be able to interpret the symptom right away. And we'd say, I've got this big rash on my arm because of this. So fix that and the rash goes away.
Yes.
It's much more difficult to fix the eczema 10 years down the line when you're trying to pick through the remnants of long forgotten memories to figure out what caused it. It's much more difficult to fix that, or it's much more difficult it's impossible to fix a miscarriage after the event. You're much better fixing it beforehand, or definitely, and then, like for example, for Laura's, as Laura said herself, if she'd known then what she knows now, no internet, no Facebook, nothing would have gone on. You know, she loves gardening, she loves animals, she likes going for little walks. You know, she loves all the things that involve in our little farming life. So that's what she would have been doing, and taking it very easy, and you know, the result would have been very different than what it is.
Yeah. Yes, I absolutely agree. And you were saying it's how the psyche perceives it.
The psyche.
So another important part to this is people who are overly sensitive, or who feel things ahead of time, who feel things more deeply.
Mm-hmm.
They're the women that need to be extra prepared for that, and the family around to be aware of that as well.
Yes, and I mean, Laura is one of those people. She's a very, very sensitive and cares hugely about what happens to other people, and that's what did it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's only in hindsight we get. You know, we can only. It's unfortunate that knowledge comes from experience in this case, because it's we've lost a child about it, and I just think that, you know, it's not complex. The German new medicine is just different, and it takes, like everything different. You start eating soup with your left hand instead of your right hand, or right hand instead of your. It's difficult to start with, but after a little while, you start to realize that German medicine is a simple process that the body has, and we learn it, teach it to your children, or learn it yourselves. Learn it before you need it, and then it's there for you, like a roadmap to recovery. It's exactly what it is. It's a roadmap to recovery, and you need the roadmap. You know, have that roadmap with you, so that when you need it, you can get yourself back to good health again. So I urge everybody to go on the website. I mean, I think you're going to probably put some websites up, which would be free-new-medicine.com and whichever other ones that I've given you in the past.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
and it sounds strange, but whatever symptoms you have, your body is trying to protect you on some level, that it's learned through a process of evolution which has gone on for 60 million years, right? And somewhere down that massive long journey, the body has learned to behave like this in this situation. And it's always doing it to try and keep us alive. So we've got to stop calling disease disease. It's a symptom of our body trying to help us cope with a perceived life stress. And Lord knows there's a lot of this going about just now, of you know, with what's going on in the world, right? So we need to be aware that the stresses we're experiencing can have a consequence. So we need to, even just knowing, can say, well, I'm just gonna take it easy, and I'm not going to allow myself to get caught up in things, and you know, behave in accordance with our biological needs. I suppose that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. No, I totally hear you. And I really thank you once again for wholeheartedly sharing so beautifully, so deeply and thoughtfully. You know, especially, you know, because I know that you really want people to learn German new medicine, to receive it as the gift that it really is. And through that, I think the world can change. Gillian's just added, I've not been pregnant these past 2 years, but I've certainly been careful with what I've exposed myself to. I know I tend to take things in, and that's just amplified when carrying a little one. Absolutely. Yeah, spot on.
Yeah, very
And
much.
she's added, thanks so much, Robert, for sharing, and Louisa for holding this space. So I think that kind of wraps it up. I can see we've got an extra comment, but it's in Portuguese, and I don't have time to translate it right now. So I will look at Patricia's comment separately and get back to her, because I'm not entirely sure what it's about, but it's got vast sums of money and the name of a bank. So I don't know if it's a genuine one, or someone trying to offer me a load of money from I don't know, some other country. Who knows? But anyway, if you've joined us live, thank you so much for joining us. If you're listening to this after, I hope this has been of some help. Robert, thank you so much as ever. Have you got any final words?
Well, take care out there. Learn German new medicine. It's available. It's free. It's available on it. There's plenty of websites which can teach it. There's books which you can buy on it. Learn, protect yourself, protect your family, and just know that nature is trying to help us stay alive. Our bodies are trying to help us stay alive, and you know, good luck, everyone. Like, you know, hopefully we'll speak again, Louisa, and we'll talk about something else. And with this condition, there's no cure because it's happened, right? But with other things that we in the future we can talk about a subject where there is a cure. Like if somebody's got Crohn's disease, well, then there's a cure to be had. So, and that'll be another interesting discussion that we perhaps can have. So,
absolutely, I think we should do it. Anyway, let's say goodbye now, and I'm going to catch up with you just after the show ends. So stay where you are, Robert. Anyway, thanks a lot. Take care. Bye for now.